We're going to be doing an unboxing video today. Some of you have guessed that we're going to unbox the bomb. We're not going to do that. We're going to talk about it a little bit, but we're going to unbox something a lot bigger. Actually, we're going to change the whole genre of unboxing videos by doing an uncrating video on this episode of Taking Off. Welcome to this special edition of Taking Off. We're doing an uncrating video, yes. From Pinnacle Aircraft Engines, we have my overhauled engine, so we're going to unbox it. I'm here at John Effinger's shop. John, if you want to jump into the forklift, we're going to uncrate this baby and see what we got. All right. Here we go, the new engine, Lola's new engine. All right, John. Okay, I've never seen one come in. I say new engine. There's a big difference between a new engine and we take the original engine and we just overhaul it. And as soon as John gets back, we'll talk about that. All right, so John, I keep saying new engine, and that's incorrect. It's actually an overhauled engine.
You got new.
What's the difference?
Yeah, you got new, overhauled, and rebuilt.
New, overhauled, and rebuilt.
So factory new is just what it states. It's a factory new engine. Overhauled, it means it's rebuilt to the factory standards. And rebuilt is built to factory new standards. So all the parts that go in that motor will meet the new criteria for parts.
Okay, so John, tell me what you look for when you take delivery on an overhauled engine.
Well, any engine, as soon as we uncrate it like we do now, you're going to look around and look for any kind of damage or anything like that.
Okay.
You know, right here, the baffle got torn and it's been up here. Okay. So, you know, things like that that are obvious, that probably happened when they were setting the lid back down on it.
Is that an easy fix?
It's definitely repairable, and we're going to clean this up anyway. This will get painted.
Okay.
A lot of times the baffle doesn't even go with the engine. Normally I refurbish that separately. Your baffle seal was in good condition, so the idea was let's just send the baffle with the seal on it. Originally it was a repair. We weren't going to go as deep as overhaul or what we would normally do refurbishing. This was just going to be a prop strike repair, so the baffle went with it, and we weren't going to worry about the particulars of the paint and how clean and the details of everything, because it was just going to continue in service. So next thing we'll do is we'll take out all the associated boxes, and we'll just look at everything that came with it, make sure everything's here.
All right.
And again, since this was an overhaul, we're going to be doing we will be taking this apart a little further than, and we should have not had everything assembled the way we did. It just changed midstream.
Right, it was after it left your shop that I decided to overhaul it.
Right.
Because originally I was just going to do repair.
So part of your overhaul is going to be all new hoses and fuel and oil lines. So obviously we still have all the old lines on this. So had we known, we would have just had everything boxed and put back in there. I'm pretty sure you've got just overhauled cylinders on here.
Okay. All right, move around to the front here.
So they did put new magnetos on it. That's part of the an overhaul. It does have to have new magnetos, and it'll have new ignition harness. And everything looks, you know, they went through. I remember there was some squawks about the induction tubes. There was some wear, and so there was some welding done on that. But we'll just have to talk about it and decide how clean you want this engine installed. We should have never put the baffle back on it when it switched over to an overhaul. I generally always rework all the baffle, and everything's painted, and a lot of attention to detail set into that. So new starter, that's a requirement with an overhaul. Now on an overhaul, for some reason they require you to put a new starter on. However, they don't require you to put all the accessories. Don't have to be overhauled. So your vacuum pumps, your alternator,
question, going back to factory new, down all the way to overhauled, the three, factory new and factory refurbished and overhauled.
Rebuilt or overhauled.
Or rebuilt, overhauled. So is it going to be the same TBO, time before overhaul now, on this engine?
Yeah, the only difference is if it's an overhauled engine or if it's a, the only engines that could be 0 time are new and rebuilt at the factory. Overhaul will still carry forward your time on your engine, but since overhaul starts at 0 again. That's the only difference. If you were to get a rebuilt engine, your engine starts out 0 time.
I see. And what kind of time can I expect from an overhauled engine?
Wow. That
The $1 million question.
A turbo Continental 520, you know, you just never know. There are engines that will make it to overhaul. There are engines that only go 300 hours and you're doing another top overhaul.
Oh,
the cylinders start failing. You know, we had a trouble with these cylinders at what, 180 hours or something.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's all we could do is install the engine and try to use techniques with the installation, extra bracketry, you know, attention to detail, add extra clamping so you don't have all the vibration and moving and all the wear that you'll see. Installation technique goes a long way when you're putting in an engine. Other than your alternator, I don't think there was ever a problem or any repairs at annual or 100 hour on the engine since 2007,
the engine was
2008.
solid. The engine's always been solid.
But that has to do with the person that does the installation, how they lay out the hoses, how they clamp and install all the accessories and things of that nature. If you've got stuff that's just chafing and rubbing when you put the engine in, come 100 hour, you're going to have a hole in the part.
Right.
So, you know, wiring and how you do the attention to detail does make a difference on these.
Okay, I have an air conditioning, factory air conditioning, right? I mean, it came from the deal. It wasn't aftermarket. What has been the issue with the air conditioning unit on this engine?
Wow. That's a pretty good question. We had compressor repairs years ago.
So the compressor is right there.
And the compressor was a replacement compressor years ago. There was the electric motor, the blower motor was replaced years ago. There's a lot of problems with that system and the ductwork.
Well, and I don't want to get into the ductwork because the ductwork is the ductwork. But wasn't the AC? What's the deal with the AC bracket? I don't quite understand. It's loose or something. It was causing the belt to be loose.
Right. Well, we did have an issue with the air conditioning bracket itself.
And where is that? Because now everything's apart.
Well, that's gone right now. So that mounts, that'll be mounting up here. That's what these longer studs are here for.
Okay.
But the air conditioner was placarded in because there's just so many. The hoses and the ducting is very deteriorated with age. It's just it's all 70s vintage.
But even with the ducting deteriorating with age, that's not reason to in-op it. Wasn't it because that belt could come loose?
All the hoses in the system leak, and you'd have to replace all the hoses, the dryer. Today we'd go to a 134 system, and so you're going to use a different Freon. So the cost and the time put into replacing all of those accessories, the dryers, flushing out your parts in that system in order to adopt it to the new Freon, it's almost as expensive as buying a new Kelly aftermarket system or Hartzell, whoever owns it at this time.
And the fan is separate. I can still turn on the fan and run that. So let me ask you this. Why even put the extra weight of the compressor on there? Should I just not even put the compressor on?
If it were my aircraft, I wouldn't invest any more money in this system that's in that airplane.
Right.
I just put that, it's like rebuilding an old avionics package. You know, when you're thinking about getting a new
Right, so I don't sink any more money.
Or
but,
an autopilot
but
that's obsolete.
Do I have to have the compressor on there?
No, it doesn't.
It's extra weight. It's extra.
Exactly. If you're not gonna try to attempt to put this back in service and put the investment into the whole system to repair it properly, there's no need to be putting that back on at this time.
Okay, well, maybe we'll think about that as we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if the AC is going to stay in op, I don't want the extra weight and stuff.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know if you had to have it on there anyway.
But again, this is a conversation we should have had when it went into overhaul, because now we've got these extra long studs to accommodate the AC bracket, and we could have converted it back to a standard.
Well, but at some point I may want to go ahead and
if you went with
AC.
the Kelly system, they'll probably integrate that into the new system later on.
Okay. All right. Okay. So what else?
Well, that's about it.
I have a stupid question for somebody who's not a mechanic, and I really don't understand everything. I do know that in talking to Pinnacle, the last step was putting the engine on a dyno. So is that, has the engine been run?
What they do is they put that engine on there, and they probably operate it for an hour and a half. And they'll run it up to operating temperature. They'll verify all the parameters, the horsepower, the output. If it was a dynamometer, then they would have checked that it was putting out the rated horsepower. And but essentially that's putting your first hour on those cylinders, and it's checking all your operating temperatures.
So these cylinders have now had an hour on them?
Yeah.
Okay.
At least, probably.
Okay.
Maybe 45 minutes, generally 45 minutes to an hour and a half.
Is that loggable hour?
It's time on your engine if you want to look at that. It'll have 1.2 hours, whatever the time is.
Okay, so there is an uncrating for you. John, here's not my engine, obviously, but let's talk about if I had done it right and known that I was going to overhaul.
Well, we could have done this.
Yeah. Okay. So this is not my engine to begin with. We are at a P210 that my former partner Nick has bought. He left my partnership with Lola to upgrade to this. Tell us about what this engine is.
Well, this is a Vidito conversion.
It's a conversion.
Yeah. So this is an STC, and they added the intercoolers to the turbo. It's got a tuned induction. Notice the intake's on the top of this motor, and on yours it's tucked underneath. So they eliminated so many issues that's plagued the Continental large bore piston line for many years in doing this. And this is just a really extraordinary kit. It's probably one of the better kits that I've ever done a modification with. And it's got a 6-point smooth ride engine mount system. So you're familiar with the engine sag that you have that plagued the 210s, and even your airplane, we've put new mounts on it, we've put a shim kit on it. That'll never happen again with this engine, with this new 6-point mount system. And it started out with Atlantic Aero, and that's changed names, but that's all part of this modification as well.
Yeah, so why is baffling so important on these engines?
Okay, on these engines and all of these engines, the baffle is very critical and quite often a neglected area. What we would do normally, if I was doing your engine and we knew it was going to be an overhaul, I would have refurbished every part, and I would, because generally there's cracks, there's gaps and leaks and seals. You could see here where everything's sealed up tight, and this isn't done yet by any means. Replacement grommets, and the tighter the baffle seal, the better the control of your CHTs primarily.
So heat, engine heat.
Engine heat, controlling the engine heat. Mostly to control the flow of the air. You want the flow to come in through the top of the engine cowl and go through those cylinders. Well, if the air is passing through all the open holes and it's passing past all the old seal material, you're not going to get efficient cooling on your engine.
All right. Okay, well then let's go look at Lola and what she's got.
Okay.
John, she looks like she's missing something.
Missing lots.
Let's start here with the engine mounts. You were talking back there with the Vidito conversion that it's 6 instead of these 4. Where do they put the the 5th and 6th engine mount right here in the middle?
Well, there's a structural mod. You actually replace the entire pillar post up on the forward side here, and then it has a dual mount system.
Oh, so these become 2 right here.
Right, and that's where it is the engine sag on the front. The rear mounts are still standard mounts.
Okay.
So nothing changes there. They just reinforce the forward edge.
Is there any kind of advantage or even possibility that if I'm putting my old 520 overhauled in to do that same?
Oh, sure. That's a separate STC.
So you can just do, I could do a, is it possible now at this point or is it too late?
Sure, sure. Everything's all right here right now. Nothing's attached to it.
What would be the advantage?
Well, the advantage is you get rid of the engine sag. You just have to weigh out the cost factor of installing something like that and the labor time involved.
Ballpark.
I think that kit's roughly $6,500, $7,000.
Okay.
So, you know, we install a couple dollar washer, that's actually an approved. That is the shim kit from Cessna, is the thicker washers, and that takes out a lot of the sag, although it's still short-lived. They have a modified mount, what they call here, that Cessna puts out. Now, by modified, they put this extra cut up on the top side here, and it's about 6 times the cost of a standard mount. And that doesn't really fix anything, and maybe half-life, you might want to change out mounts, and about that time frame you're going to find it starts sagging again. Even with the shim kits, I put the shim kits in standard on any change of the engine mount, even if it's just it came in like yours. We changed these out, I don't know,
recently,
within a year,
yeah,
maybe.
Well, not a year, but I think back when we did the top about 2 years ago.
Yeah, because you had the engine sag going on then, and the previous mounts I had the shims on there as well.
Yeah.
And it's just a heavy engine, and these are kind of inefficient for the design.
All right, so here is my prop controller, and we were having issues with it right at the end. What do you were telling me something about the prop controller?
Well, the prop control, what we'll do is, since we're looking at an overhaul now, we want to look at everything in the engine compartment and have your useful life now established back to the 2,000 hour time frame.
Okay.
You can't get better access to this prop control than right now. So you look at the cost of a new control, and your control here, the problem we had with yours was the bracket that was attaching here, and there was still wear in here. But mind you, this is at the bottom of the engine and everything's installed at the time. We replaced the retainer at that time, and we kept the prop control itself in here. At this time, it's money ahead. We'll just replace the prop control, because you could look at the wear in this part, and it's going to wear out the new part over time. Things like your cow flap cables, we'll look at those now, and if those are aged or deteriorated, we'll change those out. Generally, your mixture control and your prop control, or your throttle control. Now, we already changed out the mixture control previously, because your mixture was extremely stiff. We may consider changing out your prop control at this time.
You mean throttle?
The throttle, I'm sorry. And then, you know, again, you got a secondary cable system here for your gear warning and for your fuel pump. And we'll look at all these details and decide what gets changed out now. Obviously, old hoses are going to get changed out. The engine monitor, these main bundles, I already sleeved all of these. So
yeah, when we did the top, you did those.
So those are all in good condition, and that's just going to go back in and get installed again. Well, now that the engine's out, things that are hidden are going to be this wiring all throughout here. And this is fuel pump. This is your field wires for your alternator, regulator, charging system wires. All of those systems you got for your de-ice system, for your boots, the solenoid wiring. Any of this wiring that's deteriorated, we'll change that out, because you'll never have it this clean, open and accessible. And everything's already been cleaned in here, so it's a good time to inspect
Okay, time. So we'd be done and flying this in what, 3-4 days?
Sure. You know, those fast turnarounds, these 2-day installations, you know, they are possible.
Right.
They're not necessarily practical.
Well, and I'd much rather have it done right. I'm not in a hurry. I mean, I would want to fly this plane so bad. But, and I do have some business coming up, but I'll take commercial over, you know, this time to make sure that we do this right.
Right. And unfortunately, there's 5 engine changes at this time,
yeah,
and I
so
normally do 2 a year. So
right.
that gives you an idea about the backup right now.
So we're in line, but I'd rather be in line and wait here at Effinger's shop, who's one of the best in the country, than just go through somewhere that's quick
Well, I'm
and fast.
glad you feel that way. And remember that in a couple more weeks.
John, have we started the engine yet?
But, you know, going back, and let's just touch base about these installation times. And when you add additional brackets and clamping, we really didn't go over that too well when we looked at the other engine over there. And that's an STC, but I'm adding a lot of extra brackets and clamps. When you hear about these guys, you'll see it maybe flight schools and that kind of, or low budget installations or maintenance. When you go replacing, now even your clamps, none of these have been replaced, but you can see they're all in good condition. But adding these extra cushion clamps, the lace cord, you know, tying down wire bundles, securing everything.
Zip ties, right?
No zip ties.
Right.
There's a place for zip ties, but not
That's on
my
bread
engines.
bags.
And you'll maybe find 1 or 2 when it's done, but that's about it. It really does make a difference on your installation, how well everything's laid out. A lot of aircraft that I see come in here, there's hard lines for drain lines, and they're in 3 and 4 pieces. That aircraft that just came in, that other 210, there was just 1 drain line was in 5 parts, separate parts. It's a solid single line. So the time spent in routing and securing the items, where there's limit the vibration, limit the wear, limit the fracture, limit the cracks. So there'll be a little more time spent on that. This has already been done once already, so we'll just freshen up any clamps that need to be freshened up. Your cables, you can see here, everything that's white I've already replaced previously. So, and then everything else for your engine monitors already been sleeved and covered. So
Yeah.
we won't really have to touch on that, but we'll probably go in and touch on some of the hidden wiring and the stuff underneath here that may need to be freshened up. And we'll look at that condition close before the engine goes in.
Okay. All right. Well, I can't wait to be able to fly Lola again. John, thanks for taking us through the unboxing, uncrating of a overhauled
Pleasure
engine.
as always.
All right. And you guys, thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff, and we'll see you guys next time on Taking Off.